Okay, so I've graphed this right here, and I've got this graph. And if you look at the directions, it's going to say to factor the polynomial, then solve the equation, what f of x equals 0. Well, f of x equals 0, that means find the zeros. Find the x-intercepts. The values that you plug into this equation that gives you 0 are the x-intercepts. So if you can find the x-intercepts, then you can find the factors. So it's kind of backwards. So I would suggest if you ever want to factor anything, first find its x-intercepts, then you can tell what the factors are. For instance, if you had a parabola, well, that's horrible. And so you had a parabola, and this right here are your zeros. Let's say the x-intercept here is at 5, 0. And then this x-intercept over here is negative 4, 0. Well, the factored form of this parabola is based off these values here, which are the zeros. So the zeros are at x equals negative 4 and x equals 5, which means in factored form, that parabola would be x plus 4 times x minus 5. Because if you plug a 5 in, 5 minus 5 is 0. And 0 times anything is 0. That's the 0 of the polynomial. So if you can find the x-intercepts, then you know the zeros. And if you know the zeros, you know the factored form. Okay, so I graphed this guy right here. I graphed him right here on the calculator. And it looks like negative 3 and 4. So what I got to make sure of, though, is see how the power here is 4? So there should be 4 zeros. So I got to make sure that these are the only 2 zeros available. So I wish I could have found 4 of them, but I only found 2 of them. So the thing to do here is to use these 2 values and do synthetic division to make sure that they are the only zeros. So I'm going to take, let's see, I'll do the 4 first. And it's 1, negative 9, 12, 80, negative 192. So remember, you always bring down this one first. 1 times 4 is 4. Then you add. Negative 9 and 4 make 5. 4 times 5 is 20. That would make 32. 4 times 32. It's 120. Wait a second, that's a negative 5. 4 times a negative 5 is negative 20. So that'd be negative 8. 4 times negative 8 is a negative 32. 80 and 32, see, that'd be a positive 48. Yep, and 4 times 48, 160 and 32, make it 192. And those will give you 0. So once you get a 0 here, that confirms that this was the correct value for an x-intercept. So at least we know one of the factors, since that's a plus 4. Since that's a plus 4, we know one of our factored x minus 4. That's one of our factors. Now, let's go through and do a negative 3. And we're going to do that on the answer. So I'm going to do this on the answer here, so bring the 1 down. Negative 3 times 1, so negative 3 times 1 would be 3, negative 3. That'd be negative 8. Be a positive 24. 8 and 24 would be 16. And 3 times 16 is a negative 48. And there you get 0. So good, that checks out as well. The negative 3 checks out. So the other factor would be x plus 3. Now, we need to factor this part right here. Now, if I started, and this was x squared, x to the 4th, then every time I do a synthetic division, it whittles it down. So this winds up being x squared minus 8x plus 16. So really, I know this much. So this is the factored form we have so far. And I use my synthetic division to whittle it down to it. But they want this in factored form as well. So let's think about this for a second. Could I factor this? A product of two numbers that give me 16 that would add to give me 8. I think so. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Negative 4 give me 8. So what happened was that x minus 4. That 4 is a 0 of the polynomial, but it has a multiplicity, what they call a multiplicity. And it has a multiplicity of 3 because the factor repeats 3 times. So our factored form, you could write it in shorthand. You could write it like this if you'd like, and put the little power of 3 there. And any of these work the same way. So what I did was I took this, I graphed it, I figured out the values, there are zeros. I used synthetic division to whittle that down. And then at the very end, I try to factor it out. And if you have trouble factoring this last piece, you could have done the quadratic formula and found out that it was 4 as well. So you would have found the other two answers as 4. So here's your factored form.